You know that moment. Someone attacks you with words, loud, unfair, full of emotion. In your head, a response instantly forms, a comeback, a counterattack. But the more you speak, the weaker you feel. That's not because you don't have a voice. It's because your brain is reacting in old patterns. It wants to defend, not to understand. Yet true strength doesn't arise from noise. It's born in silence. In the next few minutes, you will see why silence often holds more power than any word, and how you can awaken that calm within yourself. Have you ever wondered why sometimes it's wiser to say nothing? We grow up in a world where loudness is often mistaken for strength. The one who talks faster, argues louder, seems to win. But in truth, many people lose their power at that exact moment because they react instead of leading. Silence is not withdrawal. It's a signal to your nervous system. I am safe. While words often come from the ego, silence arises from awareness. It's like the moment when a lake stops rippling. Only then can you see what's truly reflected beneath the surface. Those who've learned to respond with silence have stopped wasting energy. They no longer choose to be right. They choose peace. When someone attacks or criticizes you, you feel that inner pressure immediately. Your heart beats faster, your breathing becomes shallow, and your mind screams, say something back. It feels like if you don't, you'll lose. But from a neuroscience perspective, that's not a character flaw. It's a reflex. Your limbic system, the oldest part of your brain, interprets words as threats. It triggers the same stress hormones as if you were being physically attacked. In that state, you want to defend yourself, not understand. Every word you speak in that moment comes from adrenaline, not clarity. It's like trying to sail through a storm. You can see the shore, but the waves are too loud to keep your course. That's why true control doesn't begin with words, but with a single breath. Take a deep breath before you speak. Count to 3 in your mind. Not to hold yourself back, but to give your brain time to shift from reaction to reflection. That small pause changes everything. You no longer respond impulsively, you respond consciously. And suddenly, the other person feels that you're not fighting, you're leading. But why does silence often feel more powerful than the perfect argument? You'll understand that only when you learn what silence actually does inside the brain. Silence is not a passive state. It's an active process in the brain where attention and self-control work together. When you stay quiet, you activate neural networks that are usually engaged during meditation or flow states. Your brain begins to produce more alpha waves. Those are the frequencies linked to inner calm, clarity, and focus. At the same time, the level of the stress hormone cortisol decreases. That means silence, physiologically speaking, is healing. It not only calms the situation, it calms you. In that silence, space is created for empathy because you're truly listening, not to reply, but to understand. And that's exactly what the other person senses. Your silence forces them to face their own words. Like an echo that returns, it reveals the truth without a single word. When you learn not to fill that moment, silence becomes a language, one that only the strong truly master. Truly strong people know that silence isn't coincidence, it's strategy. When you stay silent, you compel the other person to keep talking until they become uncertain themselves. And in that uncertainty, the truth starts to surface. Psychologists call this the mirror principle. When you don't return energy, the other person is confronted with their own. They'll try to fill the emptiness with words, gestures, explanations. And in doing so, they often reveal more than they intended. Your silence becomes an invisible mirror that reflects everything without judging. And that's where real power lies. Not because you're controlling, but because you're present. It's the same energy great leaders radiate when they remain calm, while others grow nervous. Silence means I'm not trapped in your game. You set the frame, and the other person reacts to you. The next time you feel your pulse rising in an argument or heated discussion, say to yourself, I remain the mirror. Breathe and observe. Often, the situation will calm down on its own because your silence disarms the emotional tension. It's like extinguishing a fire, not by fighting it, but by taking away its oxygen. From that place, authority grows, quiet yet unmistakable. Most people fear silence, not because it's the absence of sound, but because it's a mirror. In silence, you no longer hear the other person. You start to hear yourself, and that's often louder than any word. When you suddenly become quiet in a conversation, discomfort appears. Your mind wonders if you look weak, if the other person is misunderstanding you, or if you might lose something. But that discomfort isn't a sign of weakness. It's the moment your nervous system begins to learn not to flee or fight right away. At first, silence feels like emptiness, but in truth, it's space. Space for awareness, self-observation, and emotional maturity. Train yourself to endure silence instead of filling it. When you feel the urge to speak, wait 2 breaths longer. Observe what happens inside you. You'll notice that what you call discomfort is actually energy. Energy you used to waste on reactions, and that now stays with you. Each time you do this, your ability to remain calm in tension grows stronger. That's true mental strength, not control over others, but over yourself. Those who can bear silence without numbing it with words develop a depth that others can feel. Suddenly, people start talking to you differently. They lower their voice, become gentler, more honest, because your calm changes the room, not the volume. In relationships, silence is often misunderstood. Many think it means distance, coldness, or lack of interest. But true silence in connection is something different. It's respect. It means giving the other person space to feel their emotions without immediately correcting or explaining them. When you stay silent during an argument, you're unconsciously sending a signal. I hear you, even if I don't agree. That's not surrender. It's emotional maturity. Words spoken in anger build walls. Silence builds time. And within that time, clarity can emerge. Psychologically, silence activates your partner's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for insight and self-reflection. When you don't strike back, the other person loses the energy that was fueling them. They can start thinking again instead of just reacting. That's the moment when understanding becomes possible. Remember, every conflict has 2 levels, the level of words and the level of energy. If you remain calm on the energetic level, the conflict loses its sharpness, even if the words still sound harsh. Your silence acts like an anchor in the storm. It says, I'm here, but I'm not diving into chaos with you. Practice this in small moments. When someone interrupts you, keep listening. When someone criticizes you, stay calm without justifying yourself. That's not weakness, that's integrity. Because silence at the right moment says more than 1,000 carefully chosen words. The hardest silence isn't the one you keep with others. It's the one you face when you're alone. In outer silence, the inner noise begins. Thoughts, doubts, old memories surface, the ones you usually drown out with distractions. Many people fear this emptiness because it's where they finally hear everything they've been avoiding. The unfinished questions, the postponed dreams, the wounds that still hurt. But But this is exactly where true healing begins. When you become quiet, you finally hear what's speaking within you, and you realize that you are not your thoughts, but the one who observes them. From a neuroscience perspective, in this inner silence, the activity of the default mode network, the brain region responsible for rumination and self-criticism, decreases. At the same time, the area linked to self-compassion and awareness becomes more active. So silence isn't a retreat from the world. It's a return to yourself. Try sitting for a few minutes each day. No music, no phone, no goal. Just observe what happens when you do nothing. At first, it will be loud, then gradually quiet. And in that quiet, you begin to see what truly matters. Not what keeps you busy, but what moves you. Those who can be silent with themselves become untouchable, because peace isn't something you find outside. It's the ability to stay calm inside your own mind, even when life is screaming. In everyday life, true strength doesn't show up in grand speeches. It shows in the small moments when you stay silent, even though you could be right. Silence at work, in discussions, or in the constant digital noise has become almost a superpower. While others always have to say something, you don't react, you observe. And that's what gives you clarity, because those who stay silent see more. Your brain has time to recognize patterns, while others are still caught up in emotion. Psychologically, silence means keeping control over your attention. It's the difference between stimulus and response, between instinct and awareness. Those who reply instantly lose power. Those who wait gain perspective. Studies show that people who use pauses in conversation are perceived as more competent, mature, and confident. Silence is unconsciously associated with security, with someone who doesn't need to prove themselves. Make it a habit to take 2 extra seconds to breathe before reacting. Whether it's when you're writing an email, in a meeting, or in a heated argument. That tiny gap changes everything. It separates impulse from intelligence. And the more you practice it, the stronger your inner system becomes. Over time, you'll realize silence isn't doing nothing. It's the highest form of awareness. It's acting without rush, responding without loss. You're no longer driven by what's loud. You lead through calm. Like everything in life, silence can also tip over. What once was strength can become a wall you hide behind. There's a silence that heals and a silence that separates. If you stay quiet too often when your heart wants to speak, something inside you starts to build up. Unspoken anger, unexplained longing, unexpressed truth. All of it eventually finds a way out. Psychologically, silence then becomes a defense mechanism. It protects you in the short term, but in the long run, it blocks connection. The goal, therefore, isn't to always stay silent, but to know when silence is strength and when it's fear. Mature communication doesn't mean always talking or always being quiet. It means consciously choosing between the two. Silence is powerful when it comes from peace, but it's destructive when it comes from fear. Ask yourself in difficult moments, am I silent because I feel safe or because I'm afraid to speak? The answer to that question separates self-control from self-denial. If you notice that your silence is isolating you, the next brave step is to speak, not loudly, but truthfully. Say what moves you without fighting, because true strength is the balance between voice and silence. Learn to see silence not as the end, but as part of the dialogue, a breath between two truths. Where words and silence meet, real connection begins. Conscious silence isn't a spontaneous decision, it's a practice. Just as muscles grow through repetition, your inner peace strengthens the more you train it. Start small. Every morning, Take 1 minute of silence before you touch your phone. No scrolling, no thinking, just breathing. Notice how your body responds. In that minute, your nervous system recalibrates. You begin the day from calm, not from chaos. Throughout the day, you can apply this practice anywhere: in the car, in the elevator, in line at the store. Every time you feel the impulse to react immediately, pause for a moment. Feel the space between what happens and what you make of it. That space is your zone of influence. That's where self-mastery grows. In the evening, write down the moments when you chose to stay silent and what changed because of it. This simple journaling anchors the behavior in your awareness. It reminds you that silence isn't a loss, it's a choice. Over time, silence stops being a tool and becomes a state of being. It follows you everywhere: in conversations, in stress, in chaos. You begin to realize you don't always have to speak to be understood. Your presence is enough. And that's the moment when silence becomes a form of language, clear, calm, and unshakable. In the end, it's not about never speaking again. It's about consciously choosing when silence says more than words. Silence isn't a technique, it's an attitude. It shows that you are centered within yourself while others are still searching. When you've learned to stay calm during conflict, to truly listen in conversation, and to find peace within yourself, you've already won. Because the real goal isn't to defeat others, it's to understand yourself. To help you train this strength in daily life, here's your 2-minute plan. 1 minute of breathing. When you feel provoked, take a deep breath without reacting. Feel the impulse, but don't act on it right away. 1 minute of observing. Notice what happens inside you. Where does the tension sit? What is your ego trying to prove? Observe without judgment. When you practice these 2 minutes, a space appears between stimulus and response, and in that space, your mental freedom grows. Over time, you'll realize that silence isn't emptiness, it's presence. It's the moment you stop defending yourself and start understanding yourself. Every time you remain silent, you strengthen your connection to yourself, and that changes everything. In the end, only one truth remains. Not every silence is empty. Some silences are full of meaning. Words can hurt, justify, or confuse. But silence heals. It shows that you no longer need to prove yourself, that you've learned to be with yourself without losing who you are. The loudest voice in the room is often the one that says nothing, because it has nothing left to defend. Remember, you don't always have to respond to be understood. Sometimes, all it takes is a look, a breath, a pause. And in that pause lies everything: peace, clarity, power. If this video made you reflect, leave a comment below. When was the last time you stayed silent even though you could have spoken? And if you want to learn how to stay calm in any chaos, subscribe to Unlocked Life so you don't miss the next video, because the next topic will show you why inner peace is the loudest form of strength.